President Biden says America is entering a new phase in the fight against the coronavirus. As of Tuesday, more than 105 million adults have been fully vaccinated. That's nearly 41% of all adults in the country. Now, the White House says it's shifting focus to hard-to-reach Americans and those who have been hesitant to get the vaccine. The president also laid out plans to begin vaccinating children as young as 12 and set a new vaccination goal. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang begins our coverage from the White House.
President Biden once again pleaded with Americans to get a vaccine.
We need you to bring it home. Get vaccinated. In 2 months, let's celebrate our independence as a nation and our independence from this virus.
As of today, about 57% of the adult population in the U.S. has received at least one dose of the vaccine. President Biden is aiming to get that number to 70% by July 4th. He also set a goal to have 160 million adults fully vaccinated by then, compared to 105 million so far. The White House is focusing on 3 areas: vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds as soon as the FDA authorizes it, which is expected soon, making it more convenient to get a vaccine with more walk-in appointments, pop-up clinics, and mobile units, and boosting vaccine confidence.
I want to be clear. I've been saying this a long time, but I really believe this is not a Democrat or a Republican issue.
But the demand for the vaccine is dwindling. The number of people getting a first shot or single dose is down 50% since peaking on April 11th, 2 days before the administration announced a pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. At least 25 states told CBS News they did not order all the supply that is available to them for this week. Today, officials told governors that the doses they don't want would be reallocated to states with higher demands. The president said the decision to get vaccinated should not be difficult.
People who are not fully vaccinated can still die every day from COVID-19. This is your choice. It's life and death.
The president reminded young people who have been reluctant to get shots that it's not only about their lives, but protecting others.
And Weijia Jiang joins me now from the White House. So, Weijia, if the country hits the president's goal of 160 million adults fully vaccinated by July 4th, could we see the White House start to endorse a lifting of COVID restrictions?
Well, I think we have to wait to see how the CDC would incorporate any new progress, any new numbers into any new guidelines that we could see. But we do know that today President Biden said it would be a huge step toward normal, a huge step toward life as we knew it before COVID. But he really made the case, Elaine, that the biggest incentive of all was to stay healthy and to stay alive. I mean, he said in no uncertain terms that deciding to get the vaccine should be an easy one, because he's making the case that not only is it safe, but it's a lifesaver, not only for yourself, but for others around you.
Well, the president also said the White House is now shifting its focus in part to reaching Americans who are less eager to get the vaccine. So how do officials hope to convince people to get the vaccine who might be skeptical or simply don't want it?
So this is an ongoing project because it is a problem that they identified early on that we are now seeing play out. And that is that people, even if they have access to the vaccine, don't want it because of a variety of reasons. And so President Biden tried to stress that this is not a political decision. He tried to once again remind people that the science behind these vaccines have been being developed for, years and years. And so even though it seems that we got here very quickly, this has been a something that has been in the works for a while, and to trust your doctors and to trust people you know and love who have already gotten the vaccine and are doing fine and not getting COVID, by the way. And so he said that, that there will be more spokespeople, more messengers, and more people to work on the local level, in the communities, to try to answer any questions people might have as they figure out how to change people's minds.
And the Biden administration is also changing how doses are allocated to states. Can you explain that, Weijia?
Sure. So, as recently as last month, there were states that really had a higher demand than others that were asking for additional doses, and it was the administration's stance that they weren't going to move things around, that they were going to distribute numbers and supply based on demand and based on population. And now they announced, 2 governors, that if the state does not order the maximum amount that's allotted to them, they're going to take that surplus and put it into a federal pool of vaccine supply that other states will then have access to, because it's different in every area, different in every state when you're talking about how many people want to get the vaccine. So this is, again, part of their strategy as they're looking at the data and realizing that things are so different in different areas of the country, to try to get as many shots in arms as possible. In fact, administration officials, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, are now shifting away from talking about herd immunity and trying to hit that. And they say their focus is really just to get as many vaccines distributed as possible and not focus on what Fauci called an elusive number or target goal when they were talking about herd immunity before.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that shift in focus by Dr. Fauci and other top public health experts. Finally, Weijia, with demand slowing, at what point might the White House consider sharing America's vaccine supply with other countries?
So the U.S. has already given, some supply to Canada and Mexico, and President Biden said today that he is working very closely to help India in any way possible. And I think it's notable that he said, even if the U.S. gets out of this, and we do see that light at the end of the tunnel, or get there rather, that if there is a problem anywhere else in the world, the president said he will continue to order doses of Pfizer and Moderna and do whatever he can to make sure the U.S. is playing an instrumental role in ending the pandemic globally. And so far, he says, along with other officials, that we are already on track to have enough supply for every American who wants it by the end of this month. But so I think at that point we can start seeing how they'll deal with whatever excess amount we have.
All right, Weijia Jiang at the White House. Weijia, thank you.
Sure.